Hi everybody, Mrs. Danielson here, and we are going to talk about the 6 trig functions of special triangles. And this should be a review. Most of you have probably learned it before, but we're going to be using it in our pre-calculus for the next couple of chapters. So we're going to take some time and just review it today. So let's go ahead and take a look at our trig functions for 45, 45, 90 triangles, as well as for 30, 60, 90 triangles. And then we're going to just calculate them. We're going to make a nice little table that you can refer to down the road. Feel free at any time if you need to pause this video, take a minute, catch up, write things down, pause it, then get going again. That's fine. If it's going a little bit fast, you can always pause it and then push play again. Okay, so what we have here is we have 2 triangles, our 45, 45, 90 triangle and our 30, 60, 90 triangle. And we have learned in the past the different side lengths of these 2 triangles. You may have learned a 45, 45, 90 triangle has the side lengths x and x for the 2 legs, and then the hypotenuse was the square root of 2 times x. Or you may have not had the x's and instead just had a 1 and a square root of 2, and that's what we're going to work with today when we're doing our trig ratios. And then over here on the 30, 60, 90 triangle, we would have had for the short side an x, and then the hypotenuse is 2 times the short side, so 2x. And then over here opposite the 60-degree angle, it was the square root of 3 times x. For us today, we're going to do the same thing as we just did on the 45, 45, 90, and we're just going to say x is 1. Okay, so hopefully we're familiar with that from previous curriculums. Those are our side lengths for 45, 45, 90-degree triangles and 30, 60, 90 triangles. And these are our 6 trig ratios. We did these in a previous video. We should also be a little bit familiar with it from previous curriculums as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to find all 6 trig functions for a 45-degree angle. We're going to get that from that first triangle. For a 30-degree angle, as well as a 60-degree angle from the second triangle. So let's just go ahead and get started. And we're going to start with a 45-degree angle. So 45 degrees. 45 degrees is pi over 4 in radians. That's pi is 180 degrees. 180 degrees divided by 4 is 45 degrees. Okay, so if we just go ahead and pick one of these 45-degree angles up here in this triangle, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So the side opposite that angle is 1, and the hypotenuse is the square root of 2. So sine would be 1 over the square root of 2. But we can't have a square root in the denominator. So we're going to have to switch that a little bit, do a little playing around here by multiplying the top and bottom by the square root of 2. So we get rid of the square root in the bottom. So now the denominator is going to be the square root of 2 times square root of 2, which is 2. And this fraction now becomes the square root of 2 over 2. And that's the sine of 45 degrees. Okay, cosine, if we again look up there at our 45, 45, 90 triangle, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. It's the same thing as sine, which is 1 over the square root of 2. Multiply top and bottom by the square root of 2. And you get the same thing as we have there for sine, which is the square root of 2 over 2. Okay, there we go. Okay, now tangent, we have it listed right above there. Tangent is TOA, opposite over adjacent. For that 45-degree angle, the side opposite it is 1. And the side adjacent is 1. And 1 divided by 1 is 1. So the tangent of 45 degrees is 1. Okay, now let's take a look at those reciprocal functions. Cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite. And you can see that up above in our functions listed there. So the side that is opposite the angle is 1. The hypotenuse is the square root of 2. So it would be the square root of 2 over 1. We don't really need to write the over 1, right? So I can just write the square root of 2. Okay, secant is the same thing as cosecant. in a 45, 45, 90 triangle, right? It's the reciprocal of the cosine. It's the hypotenuse over the adjacent, so the square root of 2 over 1, or the square root of 2. And the cotangent is adjacent over opposite, which for that 45-degree angle is 1 over 1, which is 1. Okay, we've got a third of our table filled up, but we need to do 30 and 60-degree angles as well. So why don't we move on to a 30-degree angle next? And what's 30 degrees in terms of radians? Well, it's pi divided by 6. 180 divided by 6 is 30 degrees. Okay, so let's start with sine. Okay, we're going to look at our 30-degree angle up here. Okay, here's our 30 degree. We're working with that one next. Okay, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and opposite the 30-degree angle is a 1, and the hypotenuse is 2. So the sine would be 1/2. You know, as long as we're looking at that one, the cosecant is the reciprocal of that. So that means the cosecant is 2. Let's just go ahead and fill that one in right now because that's pretty easy. Okay, now let's go on to cosine. The cosine of 30 degrees is adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, the side adjacent is the square root of 3. So we're going to have the square root of 3. Well, let me center that a little bit nicer. So it'd be the square root of 3 over the hypotenuse, which is 2. Okay, now secant is the reciprocal of that. So let's just go down to the secant next. And that would be 2 over the square root of 3, but there's that square root in the denominator again. Can't have that. So multiply top and bottom by the square root of 3. And what you end up with is kind of an ugly fraction, but it is what it is, right? That gives us 2 square root of 3 over 3. Okay. What's the tangent of that 30-degree angle? Opposite over adjacent. Opposite 30 degrees is 1, and the adjacent is the square root of 3. So 1 over the square root of 3, it's the square root of 3 in the denominator again. So we have to multiply top and bottom by the square root of 3. And that simplifies to the square root of 3 over 3. And again, if this is moving a little fast, you're having a hard time keeping up, you can always pause the video, catch up a little bit, take a little breath, take a little rest, then push play again. That's okay. That's the great thing about these videos, right? You can take your time. Okay, now cotangent is adjacent over opposite. Okay, let's take a look at that. Okay, adjacent, this 30-degree angle, is the square root of 3, and opposite is 1. Right, so that would be the square root of 3 over 1. Do I need to write the over 1? No. Right, so this becomes square root of 3. Okay, we're moving right along. We have all 6 trig functions for 2 of the 3 angles in our special triangles. We still need to do 60, and then we'll be finished. Okay, so the square root of, 60 degrees in radians is pi divided by 3, or 180 degrees divided by 3. Okay, so now we're going to come up here to our triangle. We're going to look at that last angle now. We're going to look at things from this 60-degree angles perspective. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is sine, and sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite the 60-degree angle is the square root of 3, and the hypotenuse is 2. Okay, so we can fill that in, square root of 3 over 2. Nice. Okay. Now, let's just go ahead and scoot over there to cosecant, actually, as long as we're looking at those 2 sides, opposite and hypotenuse. That would mean that cosecant would be 2 over the square root of 3, right? We're just flipping it. Okay. Got to fix that square root of 3, right? By multiplying top and bottom by square root of 3. And that would leave me with 2 square root of 3 over 3. Okay. All right, now let's move on to cosine. The cosine of my 60-degree angle. Okay, look at my triangle again. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent the 60-degree angle is 1. And the hypotenuse is still 2. So that means my cosine is 1/2. Secant is the reciprocal, hypotenuse over adjacent, which would be 2/1, or 2. Oh, we're almost there. Okay, now the last one, tangent of 60 degrees. Tangent, again, we're looking at that 60-degree angle here. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Opposite is the square root of 3, and adjacent is 1. Okay, so tangent is the square root of 3. Okay, for cotangent, I have to flip that, right? That square root of 3/1 would become 1 over the square root of 3. Oh, we're so close. Multiply both by the square root of 3, because we can't have a square root in the denominator. And that would simplify to the square root of 3/3. All right, and there we have it. That's all 6 trig functions for 45, 30, and 60-degree angles. Now, right now, we don't have any of those probably memorized in our head, but we could derive those pretty easily if we understand where they came from in those 2 triangles. And as time goes on and we use these more and more, you'll probably get so you'll know these pretty quickly. But for now, there's our table, and we'll get more and more familiar with those as time goes by. So that's it for the 6 trig functions of our special right triangles. Thanks for joining me today. Everyone have a great day.